Questa la live, questa ano casting, Facebook, and YouTube. Oh, and again, okay, Maule. All right. Buenas and half a day. Hamzu todos bueno hudzaniu me egadzanume ekungo kesti half a day. Pwedeti uutsan, or maybe you do like the rain. Hopefully it's not raining too hard wherever you're at. Bula utsan guinigi islas Marianas. And so this is another episode of Fanachu while we host Nidzu Tatla, si Michaelu Hanbabakwa. But I'm very happy to have with me for this episode some of the closest people that I have spent the most time with this year, because we all got to spend. We didn't have summer camp. We had Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Museum camp, and so that was last month I had on Archie Acoste, Senor Orlinda Napoti, and then Elissa Santos to talk about their experiences in the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Museum Institute program that we were all part of in Hawaii. Now, Esteman Gaigiam Tati, we are all back in the Islas Marianas Tatlu, and we are going to reflect on our experiences, and we are going to say half a day to all of the people sort of that we miss so much, who we spent an exciting month together. And so we may have at least one more person join us, but half a day. And so, por favor, before we get started, Cosinya and introducing Namsu, can you just introduce yourself, Senora Erlinda Hagufinetna?
Okay, half a day, buenas. Si Erlinda Naptizu, ginin Saipan, Northern Marianas Island, Gaigizu Giza, Jotin Kizu Public Library, go director ginin Institute.
Sidzus Mase. And Nicole Hagu Lakwi, por favor.
Half a day, Nicole Delisle Duenas, and I joined the institutes from University of Guam Micronesian Studies program.
Sidzus Masen, Elissa Hogwi mas patgun, pas Hogwi Utimo.
Hey, half a day, everybody. My name is Elissa Santos, and I'm a special project coordinator for the Kumashani Finotsamu.
Right, Biba. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of background on what the program is. Weaving a Network of Care, Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander Museum Institute, funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities and made possible through the East-West Center and the University of Hawaii, Manoa. This program started earlier this year with people from many different Pacific. And you see Nicole. Nicole is sharing her mug that she's got.
Wow.
Again, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Museum Institute merch / swag. And so we met in Zoom over several months, and then we all traveled to Hawaii, stayed at the East-West Center for a month-long in-person program. And so people were in the program from across the Pacific. Not everyone was able to attend, however, in Hawaii, but we did get to learn from those from places such as Papua New Guinea, from Lanai, the Big Island, Samoa, Aotearoa, American Samoa, Fiji. It was an incredible program. We got to work at many different places, learn from so many amazing people. And so today we are going to reflect on our experiences. And by the laws of the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Museum Institute, at least one of us has to cry. And then at least another person has to tell them it's okay. You have to apologize for crying, and then somebody needs to tell you that it's okay. All right, and so, Senora Erlinda, Gaigeo tatinai itanotmu gitsetsotmu, and so please share with us sort of your reflection after this amazing month. Sort of what is it like coming back now to
institute on, in person, coming back to work. Of course, I miss everyone. Miss everyone. From spending a month with everyone, we became really close, and we bonded, like a family. And you're right, some of us cry and some of us say it's okay to cry, but it gives me more, maybe empowerment, or maybe more comfortable now, knowing the major issue that we face is, of course, after typhoon, how to care for our collections, how to care for our items, our materials. So attending the institution actually kind of gave me more confident in when the next typhoon comes, I know what to do, or I know how to at least handle it. And not only that, it's the connection that we have with the various people from UH Manoa, the preservation department, and all the other people that we met. Just knowing that they're there for us when we need their help is even comforting. But overall, I learned a lot from the institution. Overwhelming, but it was worthwhile. Information was very informative information, and I know that our community, not only myself but my two colleagues from here, are we're all going to work together to ensure that we carry on the all that we learn from the institute.
And Nicole, how about sort of what is it like being back on Guam? I mean, having your own car once again and not having to Uber everywhere, and listening to the exciting stories from Oahu's incredible assortment of Uber drivers that go from the racist to the misogynistic to sort of the culturally engaging. So what does it feel to be back, and your reflections?
Well, it's a bit surreal. Almost like, did it really happen? Did we really get to meet, all the people that we did? And did get to see, it wasn't a dream. It really happened. We got to see, we got to visit the Lati that we had heard so many stories about, and we got to see in person, these artifacts that for me were only just things I read about. I read about them being kind of taken away, and so it's kind of surreal with all of these things, and then coming back and now thinking about, reflecting on the trip and reflecting on all the amazing people that we met. One of the members of the cohort when we left, Mina Ellison, Kanaka Maoli from Kona, if I'm remembering correctly, she said, I remember, sorry, one second. Sorry, I'm just kind of having a little technical difficulties. Sorry.
Again, we can hear you. Tadzugwa. Are you still there? Again. And so I have some pictures here from not all, we had lots of pictures, but you're mentioning Mina. And so this is Mina here with her display. And so actually while we're waiting for Nicole to get reconnected.
Sorry.
Maulika, are you there?
I think so. Yeah. Can you guys
okay? Okay.
Hear me okay? I've completely lost track of I think it was I remember Mina mentioning this sort of responsibility, this obligation, and that's that's kind of how we feel now, or at least that's kind of how I feel now, coming back and next, thinking about those next steps now, and what we need to do to kind of connect our experiences with our communities.
Sidus Masi. And so Elissa, you appear to be joining from the set of the next Fast and the Furious movie. And so I don't know what you're doing. I don't know where you're going. I'm just kidding. Put for about your reflection.
Dispensa to everyone. I'm attending a symposium with my boss. I'm in the car right now, just because it's a little noisy, and so dispensa for my environment. But as far as my overall reflection, I think I'm pretty much echoing Erlinda and Nicole. It was very hard to come down from the high, of the experience, because for me it was so enriching. And as Erlinda said, we got really close to one another early on. I think it was like day 3 when we said, it feels like we've been here for several weeks already because of how close we bonded. And so I have to admit that upon my initial return, I think I was feeling a lot of sadness because I missed everyone. However, like Nicole, there was also a feeling of like obligation, feelings of motivation as well, to see how we can best apply the knowledge that we've learned in our institutions and our communities. You're probably already annoyed by now by the number of emails I've been sending, because at least at the Kumashan, we're interested in looking into databases, archival supplies. Again, a lot of the things that we took back from that the workshops and the lectures. So I'm also, I think, in that headspace, and also feeling a lot of again, overwhelming feelings of gratitude, because we continue to learn from everybody in the cohort. We continue to connect. You can see that our Facebook chat is still active, and we're not just sharing things about museums and upcoming events, but we're also sharing photos about a family and projects we're doing, or even just scenic pictures from our islands. So we continue to support each other in those ways and to check in with each other. I know some of the ladies and I, we've been circulating things like surveys, just trying to show acts of solidarity, even if via social media, or donating to one another's projects, sharing each other's projects, and even planning to, hold like future reunions, hopefully at exhibits that apply to us in the Pacific. I know a lot of us were talking about some upcoming one in Washington, D.C. that's dealing with like U.S. empires that applies to several of us. And so, there was like, it was a roller coaster of emotion, sadness, motivation, gratitude, and maybe now excitement. Yeah.
Sidus Masi. Sidus Masi. And so, Hawai'i Koeno, is that Dwayne Johnson honking at you? Si Otsune?
Sorry, I don't know what's happening behind me. Some people are mad.
And so, does anyone want to share we got to meet so many amazing people, and we got to learn from so many amazing people as part of our time there. And so does anyone want to share sort of an experience? So, I mean, from Noel to Karen, even to, to the EC, East West Center Arts team, Annie, Eric, but then also those we met, Kamalu and Hanale at the Bishop Museum, there's Rangi from Aotearoa, and so Sean. So we got to meet so many people. Does anyone want to sort of share an experience sort of with one of the people that we met and learned from and interacted with? Senora Linda, is there any particular story that you wanted to share from somebody that you learned a lot from?
Actually, I don't think I was able to thank Karen, Noel, Eric, Annie, Marina, Amber, Marcus, and Kamulu. Really, I'm forever grateful for everything that they've done for us. Meeting them in person and learning from them, and also our guest speakers sharing their experience, their lifelong experience in museum or whatever their profession was in, sharing the ways or their ways of in their profession, and the ways of living. One guest speaker was Marianas, and she shared her experience in museum. She was a I forgot his name. I have it. I'm trying to find his name, but he actually made it clear to us that if you have your own language, speak it, share your story in your own language. That was stuck in me because, you know, I never thought of that. We go training, we go conferences, and we speak in English. But I admire how all the Hawaiians were actually, before any function or event, they do the prayers and the chant in their language, and that's, it was really breathtaking for me, at least, because we don't practice that, at least here in Saipan, or maybe I really don't practice it. But that was one that was stuck to me, is like, we can tell our own stories by using our own language. And one that was stuck to me, and I can't really quote him the right way. I guess I'm trying to find. I wrote it down. Sean Malone. He goes, "Care for the things that we love, and love for the things we care for." That was also stuck to me because really, it's a quote that says a lot about what we do, whether you're in a library, archives, or museum. So that quote that he said on that first night, I second. On his talk was, I wrote it down. I'm like, wow, that really is impressive, and it says a lot in such short sentence. And seeing Noelle cry was, to me, she's one of the toughest instructor that we have. I guess she's, you know, always ready to go, and she's very, very firm, and seeing her cry towards the end of our institute was very touchy for me, because not only did they make an impact on all of us, the cohorts, but they also impacted us, at least myself personally, professionally, and friendship wise. We may not know them long enough, like, you know, not more than a year or not more than a month, but just a short time together, we bonded. And the reporter asked me, how well did you guys bond, you know, in such short period of time? I said, we share, all these cohorts are brought together sharing, you know, caring for the collections, and we all share the same vision and passion. And it was easy to get along with everyone, just caring for our collections and learning how to even care furthermore for our collections is it was just really learning how to care for our collections as well, and learning all the insights and everyone, and hearing everyone speak was an experience for me.
Jesus Masi, Senora. And in fact, to one of your points, I wanted to share very quickly some video from when we attended the lecture at the Bishop Museum on the sort of I'm not going to say the name right, but sort of the cape, sort of the cape that was restored and returned after 200 years. Kalaniopuu. I was often bad at messing up vowels or leaving out vowels when saying long Hawaiian words, dispensazo. But so to your point though, about how in Hawaii, there was so much more ceremony that Native Hawaiians have sort of, even as things have changed, as things have become modernized, that there's still this push to keep a sense of cultural ceremony and ownership sort of in the space. And sort of we saw that they often started activities with chants. And so let me share this real fast. And so that was in Hawaiian Hall, sort of Kalanio Pu'u, the cape that was presented to Captain Cook, and then traveled to England, to Aotearoa, New Zealand, and then was returned and now sits in Hawaiian Hall in the Bishop Museum. And so I definitely appreciated that too, that as we went about and as we interacted with people, there was always this sense of cultural protocol. You know, that when we first went to the Bishop Museum, they welcomed us with a chant. Before the event, Marquez Hanale Marzan, he performed a chant sort of to open the ceremony and then to open the lecture and then to thank Rangi for her lecture by closing it with also one. And so I don't think that I sound anywhere near as good as Hanale does, but I guess at the Guam Museum, we might need to start sort of opening events with chants like that. And so, Nicole, I wanted to pass it off to you. Was sort of who amongst all that we learned from, did you want to thank or did you want to sort of reflect on?
We were so lucky to have these presentations offered by all these different people from throughout the Pacific, indigenous people throughout the Pacific. And one thing that really stood out for me was when Rangi Te Kanawa and Kanu Te Kanawa, when they presented and through their presentations, these sisters, they expressed that even things as seemingly neutral or objective or unbiased, that they're not necessarily unbiased. And I think that's a really important thing to reflect on. And how do we, that and along also the lines of how do we value our indigenous perspectives and worldviews in the context of the museum and in conservation and in collections, asking these questions, does it need to be a certain way? If that way doesn't fit in with the way, we do things, or that value our indigenous ways of knowing, does that need to be carried on? And I like this idea of sort of, we kind of take, we take what's needed, and we don't take blindly. We take what's needed and what benefits us, and we use it along the things that have always worked for us. And this goes for the way we approach museum exhibits, collections. I think that's really important. It doesn't need to kind of be this old way of doing things. And one of the other speakers from Te Papa, Sean Mallon, talked about this too, is how do we kind of envision the museum, right? And what are the things that should go into the museum, and how we can kind of start thinking about the things that we want to see. It's not going to necessarily be something old. It's not going to be dinosaur bones, and so the way that we kind of value these indigenous ways of worldviews and things. And so, going for, in the context of the museum, but also kind of thinking about the way colonialism works and has continued to work, and how we can, how do we kind of think about the things that help us, and how can we start to begin to think of the things, begin to think of the way of letting the things that don't work for us go. So that was something that I.
Bonito, Sidus Masi. No, those were such important lessons. And you mentioned, so we've already heard a little bit about sort of the workshops. People have mentioned indirectly the workshops that we attended. And sort of we've been talking about Rangi here, who's Maori, and sort of it was wonderful to learn from her in so many different ways, sort of about bringing indigenous sensibilities and sort of to sort of the work that she does. It was something that was emphasized by so many speakers, as Nicole said, sort of that the work that we do in museums, or the work that we do in libraries, the work that we do in collections, archives, the work that we do in cultural centers, it's not like sort of the West or the East, or some fancy guy who looked really unhappy in the expensive suits that he wore. sort of the old white guys club that Sean Mallon showed us a photo of, sort of they didn't figure everything out. And in fact, a lot of what they told us about how things had to be, it was sort of dripping with self-aggrandizement, about sort of propping up their own way of doing things and limiting our own ability to sort of to find a path. But I wanted to share, so this is in the Bishop Museum collection here, the ethnological collection, and the box making exercise, sort of where there was a number of different items, and then you had to measure sort of, and then figure out how to make specialized boxes for each of the items.
Actually do get a strong memory about them, and because they're quite rigid. I would like to see them flat, but that's not just, and I know in some of your circumstances that's not possible. So the alternative is to roll them. And this is, though, for this one, I recommend that this is just placed within a box. I'd like to interleave it, but it will not make any real difference to the memory that it's already formed over time. So this one, I think it could benefit from a internal tube that's covered with the Tyvek, and then that to be the tube to be slightly raised and the tube to be cradled so that it's just slightly elevated, and therefore for the box we have to consider that it's been raised, it's the tube is on a cradle, and it's taking the pressure and the weight of the object, and so we have to consider that it's got to be of that height, that wide. But I don't believe in the construction it's going to be much different to that.
And so it's part of the, I learned so much about textiles and about box making, because when you work in sort of archives and collections, you always have to know some of the basics, but there's so many things that I didn't consider. And so, for example, even what Rangi was mentioning there, sort of when you have, because across the Pacific, you have mats, different types of mats and textiles. Do you store them flat, or do you store them rolled? And sort of what is the best way to do that? And different people talked about different sort of benefits about sort of, should it be like this or should it be like that? And it was interesting sort of learning about all of that. And so Elissa, I wanted to give you a chance now. Put for what, who of all the people sort of, and that we learned from, sort of who would you like to reflect on and possibly say thank you to?
Gosh, I think, like the two ladies, it's really hard to pick just one person. So I guess allow me to go briefly and acknowledge different folks who we learned from. I'd like to start off with Annie Reynolds and Eric of the East West Center Arts Program, because of how they allowed us to use the gallery space there, and the changes I've seen within the space or within East West Center. I guess just to provide a little context, right, for viewers. I was there from 2016 to 2018 as a student, and I often didn't feel like there was a lot of Pacific representation. But when we, when I returned, when we were in the cohort, I could feel that shift in the center. We could see it clearly on the walls because of the amount of Pacific art. And then obviously when we went into the exhibit at the time, it was the FestBack exhibit that was there, and that was intentional. And then when we were going through the activity of curating the exhibit for our project, you can just tell that they were so willing to accommodate us, to also kind of do away with like your standard installation or exhibit practices, right? One thing that comes to mind is the label activity. So we were tasked to write a descriptive label at first, sort of again reflective of your sort of standard practices. But then we were also tasked to write a story label, right? Basically, the prompt was how is this item that you're bringing personal to you, right? Can you personalize this label basically? And I'm really grateful for that experience because it was so important, I think, for the item that I submitted. As you know, I didn't bring an object, and I mentioned early on to them that, you know, if I'm there to represent our people, if I want to bring and submit something that represents our people and the specific institution that I'm from, which is, you know, the Chamorro Language Commission, I'd like for folks to hear something as opposed to, you know, not just necessarily look at an object, but to hear our language, to hear our people sing it, to hear our people speak, and to see contemporary, you know, Kantan Chamarita singers talk about issues of language loss in song, in this art form of ours that not even a lot of our people know. And so I came there very overwhelmed. You know, I was like, you know, should I show old photos? Should I show the film for Kantan Chamarita? Should I narrow down this label? Should I talk about my Nana's story in it? Should I just do a quick overview of Kantan Chamarita to have a very short descriptive label because this is sort of what I'm used to seeing? They allowed me to do anything and everything, right? Anything that allowed me to share our people's story, share my Nana's story, share the work that our Manaina are doing. And so I really just want to give a shout out to the arts program, and of course Noel and Leah were very much a part of that process along with Annie and Eric. And so I want to give a shout out to them for allowing us to take up space, allowing us to share how we felt about where things were and what we'd like to see, what we'd envision. It was so collaborative. Yeah, I'd like to start there. You know, I had some other points to mention about other people that we'd like to thank, but I'm sure we'll be able to address that as we go. But yeah, East West Center Arts Program, at least amongst those that were not mentioned yet.
Sidus Masi. I mean, for me, I definitely want to thank Helena, especially for his ukulele and his singing skills. And so that was definitely something that was really nice to it, especially when we were doing the group art projects, like painting this mural and then weaving. It was good to have sort of that energy going as well. And so, Alyssa, you mentioned sort of the exhibit. And so as part of the program, sort of the culmination of the program, it was a group exhibit, a group exhibition at the East West Center Gallery. And for those of you in Hawaii, it is still up. You can still visit it. It's up there for a few more months, or excuse me, it's up until next month. And so by all means, go down there, weaving a network of care. We have some images here. These are images of sort of us when we were doing our final walkthrough, when everything had been placed up there. And so these are our friends from Fiji, Kiribati, and then the Big Island. And so Kirikara from Kiribati talking about her contribution. So each person brought with them an item, several items, or an installation. And together, sort of we, as Alyssa was mentioning, she brought sort of the Kantan Chamarita songs, recordings, and then put images and text panels related to it. And so everybody sort of did, everybody had a section, and then it was all woven together to create sort of this beautiful exhibit. And so, Senora Linda, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about the piece that you brought, sort of the wonderful Estigo Bonito na Pinentan Unay, the beautiful sand painting. And so if you don't mind, por favor.
Yep. So the object that I brought is a beautiful sand art painting that was painted by the late Albert Tovis Jr. So I'd like to actually thank his children for allowing me to showcase their father's artwork at the East West Center. I interviewed Barry Tovis, one of his sons. I believe that the interview should be already up and running at the East West Center. It actually depicts the ancient way of living for the Chamorros, the latte stone, the house, the boat, the canoe, and the farming and the background just kind of displays sharing how our ancestors used to live. And the reason why I chose that is because we really we don't see that nowadays. You don't come across a latte house unless a real latte house with the latte stones. Because there are a lot of latte houses, but not the actual latte stones. But it just reminds us of how our ancestors used to live and how we our people, our Chamorros used to live at one point in time. And hopefully someone mentioned it during the installation, the opening day to the public. Then she was like, why don't you guys do it again? Why can't you guys just carve the stones and build it again? Why does it have to stop? And I'm like, you know what? That's a good question. I never thought about it. But of course, nowadays we have hollow blocks and cement and, an easy way out. But it really is something to think about. Maybe to revisit the way our ancestors used to live and see how it goes. I know we still have some latte stones that are available that are not standing that probably can be put together and build an actual latte house. Something to think about. And just, seeing the latte stone, as Nicole mentioned at the Bishop Museum it just, it ties in with our art, the sand art painting and of course your exhibit, Senor Miguel and Nicole. But thank you again to Annie and the rest of the crew at the East West Center for allowing us this opportunity to display such a beautiful artwork and artifacts throughout the Pacific for our people who are in Hawaii, to be able to visit and see and take ownership and say, hey, this is from my island, or this is where I'm from. This is an art from the Northern Marianas or from the Mariana Islands. It's just nice just to have that space to display something from your home is really a lot. That means a lot to us, at least.
Again, Sidus Masi. And Nicole, that brings us to the latte in the room. Haha, naturally, I always wonder why people in Guam say, or the elephant in the room, at least replace your animal metaphor. And so, do you want to talk about, the piece in this exhibit that Nicole and I worked on was quite different than the other pieces. Sort of ours was a little bit more conceptual. It was less explicitly cultural, but still sort of definitely connected to a lot of the themes that were involved. And so Senora Linda's chosen piece was sort of the latte sand paintings on one side, but then on the other side, we had sort of an installation, Hollywood for Your Heritage. And so do you want to talk us through this piece, Nicole, por favor?
Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's do it together, because we worked on this together. We really wanted to tell or share the story of Hans Hornbostel, who was in Guam, Saipan, Tinian, also Rota, and how he was in the Marianas in the 1920s, and for those who don't know, he had collected thousands of artifacts, ancestral remains, and also a few latte, one from Ipao in Guam, and one from Orunau in Guam. And so, when we had started this institute, we had asked about this latte that we heard was at the Bishop Museum, because Hans Hornbostel was commissioned by the Bishop Museum in Hawaii. And so, initially we kind of approached it with, well, we know there are artifacts and latte at the Bishop. And as a part of this institute, we're really interested in repatriating the latte and the artifacts. And so, you know, initially we were thinking we would try to get the lati as part of our objects, right? In the end, but as it right before you know, I think what I was kind of envisioning at first was like right before it was gonna come back to Guam, you know, like so, you know, we weren't able to get that at least just yet. And so the idea with this piece was telling that story of Hornbostel, and the empty space in the exhibition that we have, which is accompanied by these panels that tell that story and that history of Hornbostel. The empty space that's at the center of that represents the hatligi of the lati that rests at the bishop right now. And that white line that you see is they're cut out from the 174-page list of artifacts that the Bishop Museum currently has in its collection that are affiliated with the Hornbostel collection. So if you get like you know, if you look at that closely and you're able to see like these, you know, it's just this long list, like stone, you know, it's like shell tool, and then maybe like a little question mark. Is it part of the Hornbostel collection? You know, so it's there's kind of a lot there, but we wanted with that to kind of represent you know, this absence. And that was another thing that we had, you know, discussed also with the organizers of the institute, both Karen and Noel, who, you know, kind of talked with us about this the presence of the absence. And so that's where this sort of absence of the lati and as you know, so it was really great to kind of, I think Miguel, we were the only ones that kind of worked as a team. Everybody brought their own objects, so we worked together on this, and really were able to include a lot of different images. And I don't want to take too much. I'll pass it over to you, Miguel, and maybe you can talk a little bit about Sumahi's piece, and because there was a lot going on here.
Oh, definitely. It's if you get a chance, so for those of you watching, if you get a chance to go and visit it, it's truly the exhibit overall is amazing. But sort of the installation itself has so much in it. And so I wanted to share a few things. So this was sort of the image that really started this conversation. This is from 1925. This is a young Chamorro boy who is trading a sizable stone ads for a movie ticket to Down to the Sea and Shoes by Max Sennett. And so this is one reason why Hans Hornbostel was able to collect so many things, is that they had a program that the Bishop Museum supported where young children could bring in artifacts, whether from their house or whether by searching through the jungle. And so you probably had a bunch of young Chamorro children who had up until then been taught that you need to respect these places. You need to not go play in these things. You need to not make noise. You need to leave the lati alone. You need to leave the artifacts alone. That now all of these young children had a reason to get tickets to go and grab whatever they could from these places that they had thought of as being sort of sacred, you know, or at least, you know, keep your distance, be respectful around them. And so part of what, as Nicole mentioned, part of what Hornbostel took were the lati, 3 different lati, and these are the lati behind the Bishop Museum today. And so we visited the lati, and this is one of those super awkward family pictures where some people are smiling and some people are irritated or frustrated. I totally look like sort of the yeah, I don't know. I'm trying too hard to look serious. And then swetiao na ko sa matampinay patot mo because your face is covered, so it's a mystery as to what you were feeling. But we did a few, but sort of this is one of the lati that's there. But as Nicole was mentioning, this lati right here, this is the shape that is absent in our installation. And what Nicole was able to find in the bishop archives is an image of this lati being taken from Ipao in Guam. And this is Hans Hornbostel taking this, preparing it to be sent over to the bishop. And now, as part of this, we all participated in a ceremony. And so I wanted to share a little bit of that real quickly. At the Bishop Museum, and some of our cohort members joined us. Some of our cohort members joined us and witnessed it, but we had a ceremony there in which we chanted a little bit, made a statement, prayed as well. And so let me just share that real fast. Thank you. Mahalo.
Thank you so much for leading that, Maget.
Oh no, Tazugwa. I mean, I was trying to channel the best tetsa that I could remember when I was singing, and I fell terribly short. I know me and Alyssa on the high part for that chant, we were gonna duel to see who could reach like Adele levels, who could get to the top of Mount Lamlam first. And I think we both chickened out though.
Oh no, I heard you. I heard Alyssa. You brought it. Yeah.
And so, any of you, would you like to comment on that? Because those lati have been there for almost 100 years. And at some point they were on display, but like in the yard, in the grounds, because one of the lati has even rebar put into the bottom of it so that it could be erected. But just seeing them there though, and then as Nicole found out that they were never even formally accessioned, that they weren't ever formally included in the Bishop Museum collection, what was the experience like, seeing those? Senora Linda, Bunti Hago Finetna?
This is a small state. So I think when you mentioned we weren't sure how to whether smile or be sad about it, and I was really smiling because it is it's heartbreaking to see something that belongs to us so far away, and you think that they'll add it into the collection for people to know what it is and where it came from. But to me, I was like just happy to see it again, like, hey, we're here for you, part of our ancestors or our own artifacts, and just coming from Saipan or the Mariana Islands, and that all the lattice stones that Hornbostel brought down are from the Marianas, not knowing whether they're from Guam, Saipan, Rota, or Tinian. But just touching it and seeing it, it really. Nicole was right. She was like, she wasn't sure to smile or not, but for me it was. Can you guys close it off? I'm actually on a meeting. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, the girls just walked in, but it was it was a sad moment, but then at the same time, I was kind of happy about it. And then just going around looking for more of what belongs to us, you know. And like my husband was able to find at least a part of what we think is a part of the bigger lattice stone. And that's also, it just gives you goosebumps just seeing it. So to me, I'm just happy that it's still there. Maybe that's why I smiled. And just happy to know, I mean, to feel, I guess, the lattice stone, to feel our presence from the Marianas. It's just comforting.
Because there was a picture where I was smiling and
Oh,
you
yeah.
you guys were frowning. So,
Right. Yeah, it's mixed emotions is what it is. Low, just happy. There are days, there are photos that we were all smiling, and there are photos where we were not. But you know, Nicole, we should have kept our masks on so they won't know. But I was really happy to see it. At least it's still intact, and at least it's still one piece, you know, as it should be, and not like into pieces or not even there at all. Yep. Thank you, Senor.
And so Nicole, Paulo?
You know, I think we were just we were very happy to be together, and I think we were also happy to just know that it was it was really, I mean, still a mystery, but it's not as much as a mystery. You know, we were kind of happy to know that it's going to be this journey now and bringing it back. And you know, I think it was you know, I think like Indigenous people in the museums always kind of feel it can get emotional, you know, and being reunited with these objects that are that are sacred, represent sacred spaces, and also represent you know, the, you know, Chamorros before colonization, you know. But it was emotional, it was sacred, it was spiritual, and you know, just kind of reminding it reminded us of it just reminded us of that history of museums, and that history of taking, and that the idea that there are many things that are still away from Guam or Saipan, and away from us, right? Things that were taken and still in these faraway places that we don't have access to. And that's always the story of museums, and that's the story that this institute is, you know, was really trying to resolve through building these relationships and this network with each other.
And Elissa?
Yeah, again, just I think echoing some of what the ladies have shared. It was bittersweet, right? It was clearly heartbreaking and awkward to see them just there on the side, and again early on with some debris right around and right across from a pile of rubble and rocks. But I think, you know, in the short amount of time that we were there, we clearly did all we could to visit the laddie and to be in conversation with those at Bishop Museum. I think we went about 4 times, some of us, and you know, every time we went back, we said a little prayer. You know, Nicole gave omelet, or we went back and we tried to clean off some of the plant life that was growing on it, right? Just so that it doesn't, you know, eventually the root system doesn't eventually break it apart or break it up further. And so I think, you know, we did the best we could to reestablish that connection, to share with our ancestors, you know, that we're there, that we're thinking of them. And I really appreciated our cohort members and others who came for the ceremony, to witness that. And you've heard me mention this before, but even prior to that day, others were holding space for us, right? Hoku, Mina, they'd follow us to visit the Lati, and they're Hawaiian, right? But they held space for us to learn about what the Lati mean to us, what they were used for by our ancestors. And so I appreciate even all the moments that led up to that one. I also appreciate the museum staff who kind of just let us do our thing, right? So that day we all went together with Senora Napati's husband. We were just a bunch of Chamorros, right? Like with Nicole had her measuring tape. We were like going through the rocks and everything, and the staff were like passing by when probably wondering, what the heck this group of people are doing at the back here. But as we explained to people, and I think we even explained it to, correct me if I'm wrong, the security guard's name, was it Rollin or Howard? Howard, right?
Right.
It's Roland with a W.
Rollin with
Yeah,
a
Roland.
Yeah.
you, Rollin. Once we like explained to staffers like him what we were doing, they understood and were so like willing to help, and they're like, oh, let us know, we can take you around and look at some other stones around the facility. And so from that energy to even the energy of Kamalu and Anale, who again attended the ceremony and who reassured us that we would continue these conversations about how to best care for them. That meant the world. And so I just wanted to extend our appreciation for folks who kind of participated in that or had conversations with us along the way leading up to the ceremony.
Just Masi. So I wanted to give everybody one chance to share sort of like, what was your highlight from this? There were so many highlights, there were so many wonderful, enriching experiences, but sort of as part of our final reflection, what was a moment, what was an activity, what was an exchange, sort of that you just are really going to hold on to because it was fun, because it was impactful. But I mean, actually, one of the things we did early on as in our time there was we went to the sort of the taro patch near Hawaiian cities. There's Tyler, and there's Hoku there from our cohort. Tyler's from Saipan, and sort of.
And this variety is called
We spent a few hours there, sort of helping out.
Fish.
I think the people from the group from the Marianas, we had the highest percentage in the mud of any other group. I think. And so, from all of the different things, from spending time in taro patches to, I know that there was some karaoke sort of adventures. There was visits to wonderful museum collections, all sorts of stuff. And so, Elissa, Hogo Finetna, because I know you need to go shortly. So what was your what was a highlight that you would want to share before we say goodbye?
For me, it was definitely the mural experience. I've honestly never participated in, well, with the exception of like independent Guam murals, but nothing that was like gonna go into an exhibit. I've never participated in a project like that. And so working with Eliana, she was amazing, right? She just has a way of like creating beauty out of the chaos and encouraging us to not be so territorial with our work, but to see the beauty in everybody else's piece. And she's constantly shifting us, right? And really getting us to put our mark in every possible corner and place you can imagine, and to at the same time be extremely mindful of what colors are respectful to other cultures, what symbols are respectful, that kind of stuff. But in addition to just that experience with her as our mentor and facilitator of that project, it was just us getting closer again to one another through, as you mentioned, singing, through joining Helena as he played the ukulele, through learning from one another. There was clearly, the group of artists and those of us who are sort of just amateurs, but we really respected one another and encouraged one another, and I think created a beautiful piece. We stayed until like past midnight, and for that short amount of time, I think we did an excellent job. It was just wonderful to kind of produce that together and to bond over it.
Hongyan, this is a piece right here, and what's it called? This cute little thing in front of it is not part of the mural, but did help at different points. And so, but yes, that was an amazing experience and a very different type of experience, right? How many professional development workshops do you go to where you have to paint a mural that's going to be part of an exhibit as part of it? It shows you a different side to sort of the work. Sidus Masi, Alyssa, and so Nicole, a highlight that you would like to share.
I really loved visiting the Hawaii triennial exhibit at the Hawaii State Art Museum, the HISAM, we went on a tour with one of the curators, Drew Broderick, and this exhibit was, we had come from a tour at the Iolani Palace, and then we went to this tour at the HISAM, and the exhibit had kind of tackling issues around militarism and these and artistic sort of expressions in response to the military in Hawaii, and it had come just a few weeks before RIMPAC and the so yeah, I really loved this exhibit, and also the ways that this exhibit kind of mixed poetry and writing with visual art, and this was one of the highlights for me.
Sidus Masi. Senora Linda, Hago Pablo.
So for me, the highlight, I guess, for me is I love the field trip and all, but because we're divided into two groups, we weren't able to spend time together. But the highlight that I took out from this institution is I share with Elisa is the art painting with Miliana, only because it was the one thing that we all worked together with, whether we were weaving or painting. It was just really having everyone in one room working together, doing the art mural for our painting, and just sharing the space with everyone in the cohort, and then maybe in one side with the weaving, one side with the painting, but just everyone in the same room was really, it was an experience, and it was one that I actually kind of cherish amongst all, because it was a night or several nights where we all worked together and days. So that was one that I actually enjoyed most. Aside from, I enjoyed everything because we all learned a lot, but this is more like our free time, not free time, but more of our downtime, where we can just relax and paint and do what we, and play around with the paintbrush. And then here comes Meliana saying, "Oh, that's beautiful." And you're looking at it. I'm like, what is so beautiful about what I just did? It's not even, nothing close to what everybody else did, but I'm just thankful that they left the book in there. And the fact that we added 2 more latte to the latte stone, that was really nice. I enjoyed that. And that mural there, it speaks volume, like I mentioned earlier. And it represents each one of the cohort members, whether they painted or not. But it's just us. When you see that, it reminds me of every single cohort member in our group. And that, I think, is one of my highlights. And the other thing is Rangi and the sister. Rangi and the sister sharing their knowledge, their skills at this age, that was really something, because you don't find people nowadays at that age that are willing to share what they know, because they, you come across people that are stingy with their knowledge, but sharing what they learn and what they did from, or what they're doing and what she did from the past to now. And she's very graceful. She's very graceful, and she just like naturally, like she has good people skills. She's very humble, and just teaching us, you didn't see her raise her voice or anything. I did centimeters or millimeters or centimeters instead of millimeters. And at that age, people will be like, didn't you get it? Like they'll be so upset about it. But she's very graceful about the way she expressed, it's gotta be millimeter. But I just feel that, I mean, there are two sisters that I think, if we have more of them that are willing to share what they know, it will be in a better place. That's my highlight.
Hi, Sidzus Masi. Oh, thank you. Thank you to all of you for sharing. And Nicole?
I was just gonna thank you too, Maguette, for giving us this time to reflect, and thank you everyone. It's like the fantastic organizing committee and the brilliant participants of the cohort who we've developed these lasting friendships with. So that's all I just wanted to thank you guys.
Yeah, Sidzus Masi, Senyor Maguette for putting this together, and a little reunion, even though we're just 30 minutes flight away. Sidzus Masi, and I hope to see more of you guys in the future here, and vice versa when I go visit Guam.
Again, I'm waiting for the tickets to go down in price.
The new airline just opened up, so tickets should be dropping anytime soon. Take advantage of the promo.
Oh, wow, okay, again, I always look for reasons to visit the CNMI. And many of our cohort members were watching and sort of enjoying our reflections, mini reunion. I look forward to us all getting together in Zoom again to catch up. But for those of you who are watching, this was reflections from the Marianas members of the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Museum Institute, the first of its kind, a historic opportunity for those working in museums, cultural centers, libraries, archives from across the Pacific to come together, and as the name of it implies, to weave a network of care. So to talk about how we can care for our cultural treasures, how we can connect to each other, how we can help each other. And so one final thing before we go is that if you are in Hawaii, head to the East-West Center Gallery. Watch out, because parking's crazy over there. Whenever I leave island, I'm happy to come back and not have to worry about paying for parking everywhere you go. And so it will be there. It opened on July 31st. It will be up there until September 11th. And it is a great opportunity to see cultural treasures from across the Pacific. And then also to hear the stories, and then experience the narratives, sort of the conversations that we bring to each of our pieces, but also then to be in the space to see how we wove each of our offerings together. Because that was sort of the main focus for this entire institute, was how can we weave to make something stronger, to make something that can benefit more than just one of us, or more than just some of us. And so, Enoha Parapago, Sidzus Masi, Hamsutoros ni Omega, thank you to all of you for tuning in. Adios, estiki man at Lihitat.
Thank you.